The essentials. All the things that everyone took for granted are the things that we knew made us happy. The essential for us is to have our feet in the sand and enjoy the sea breeze. The real taste of our food when you share it with friends. Our resilience and the healing power of a hug. The essential for us is to be able to express ourselves, to know that through our veins flows our breathing, that we can dance forever. We know that no matter the circumstances, there is nothing that can break our Jamaican spirit. And for us, that is priceless. Keep on doing what really matters. Now easier and safer with MasterCard. Together, let's start something priceless.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Camp, a webinar presented by MasterCard. I'm Dr. Terry Carroll-Reed, and it is a pleasure to serve you in the capacity of host. Now, you might be wondering, Financial Camp, Terry Carroll, what are you talking about? Well, MasterCard believes in the power of financial literacy as well as financial inclusion. And what that means is we believe every citizen, especially the younger generation, has a right to live comfortably and to prosper, because when we prosper, it means that our communities and countries benefit at large. But we can't do all of those things without putting certain things in place. And that is ensuring that there is access to information, resources, as well as tools. But not just that, we want to make sure that we understand our money, that we have a healthy relationship with it, that we manage it well, and of course, make the right financial decisions to ensure that somehow we're able to build that generational wealth. If this is what you're interested in, then trust me, you are in the right place. And just in case you may have to step away and miss a part of this webinar, don't worry, we have you covered. Just visit priceless.com to access the replays. Now, we know that the financial discussion can be pretty intimidating, sometimes overwhelming, and even sometimes hard to understand. But I have the perfect people who will be a part of my panel discussion today, and I'm so excited to have them on the show. Please put your hands together virtually as I welcome Tony Spence, Senior Analyst, Business Development at MasterCard. Tony, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you think a webinar such as this is important.
Thank you, Terry. And hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be representing MasterCard at our financial camp. As you said, Terry, we here at MasterCard, we are committed to financial inclusion, where every citizen will gain access to having the full suite of financial services. And we really think that the first step to access is having information, gaining knowledge. So that's our goal today, to share with you, build financial literacy. And I look forward to having a very engaging conversation.
Thank you so very much. As you said, knowledge is power, and using that knowledge wisely. Thank you so very much for being one of our panelists today. So the next panelist I'm going to introduce actually needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. It is a pleasure to introduce and welcome to the Financial Camp presented by MasterCard, Grammy award-winning artist and the official MasterCard brand ambassador here for the country, Michaela Simpson, but we popularly know her as Coffee. Coffee, welcome to the show, and tell me, as a young artist, a young superstar, how important is it to know more about finances?
Blessings. Well, thank you, Terry Carroll. I'm actually going to call you Dr. Reed this time. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, a panelist of the Financial Camp by MasterCard, to learn alongside my peers and to also hopefully teach you a few things as well, as we invite you on the journey to financial freedom.
We understand the demands that you have, and so just for you to be able to sit down with us, thank you so very much. Now, I'm actually going to start with you, and it's because your story is a very interesting one. You were a fifth former, you were getting ready like most, I guess 16, by fifth form, we're 16, 17, thereabout. You were getting ready to go into like sixth form, and it didn't work out. And so you all of a sudden decided to focus on your music, and all of a sudden, super stardom. And so I'm really excited to hear, what your nuggets and wisdom are as somebody who's so young, having moved into, fame and fortune. So for those of you who are watching, we know that the financial journey and the financial discussion is pretty large. It's a pretty broad area. But for purposes of this particular webinar, we're going to look at three main areas. We're going to look at budget, payment methods, as well as investments. So again, let me start with coffee. You decide to focus on your music. We're going to start with budgeting, right? All of a sudden now, as a young teen, you are now a celebrity. Money's coming in, you're booked for some of the biggest shows. How do you budget? Do you budget? Do you actively budget? And why do you think budgeting is important?
Well, yes, I do budget. I think it's important to budget because it's good to have a general sense, a general idea and evaluation of the money and the inflow of money that you have at a certain time, which is now, and then look at it in relation to the future and see how you'll be able to take care of yourself and take care of your needs, and kind of ration it in a sense going forward as young people especially.
So let me ask you this, because you're young, and I know that we're going to have a lot of youngsters who may not always know, how to be disciplined enough when it comes to budgeting, especially when you come into your new job or you're getting more money. When you were younger, maybe it was easy budgeting a little bit of money, but now you see this amount of money. Was it difficult to budget at first, or did you just take your time?
Well, at first I was really guided by my manager, who had a greater financial sense and a greater financial knowledge at the time than myself. And she kind of showed me how to budget large monies regarding, paying for my house or my whatever large expenses that I had at the time. And I think her guidance from then has still been able to help me now to balance.
Very nice. And Tony, I know you are our financial expert. You're listening to Coffee, and it's so, I think, commendable, admirable that even as a youngster and the platform that she has to be able to say that budgeting is important. Would you like to add anything to that?
Definitely, Terry. And I think, youth is a really important thing to start from, because you're never too young to start. And as Coffee showed us, even you can gain success very early in life and, things change, or you could have a little bit of money, right? What we're talking about is not limited to, those with a lot, but you can budget even with a little, and it's never too early to start. I don't know, Terry, how old were you when you first started thinking about finance and making a plan?
Well, growing up in a single parent home, I grew up with my grandmother and my mom. And grandma just always taught me, you need to budget and you need to save for that rainy day. And so from as early as prep school, I remember her saying, even if you get a certain amount of money for your lunch money and you want to buy your food or your sweetie or your snacks, always keep back a little something for tomorrow. So because of that, I would say that I started budgeting maybe as early as prep school, and I have taken that into my adulthood.
Perfect. And we all know, Coffee, you're a young lady, and so it's never too early to start. And I think now that we've kind of gotten rid of that initial hesitation of about, I'm too young or I don't have enough money, let's talk about what a budget is, because we don't want to assume, right? So a budget is merely a plan. It's merely writing down how much money you spend in a week, in a month, whatever period of time, and looking at it against how much money you earned for that same period of time. And once you have written down, this is how much I earn, this is how much I spend, you can see the difference, right? So you might have some left over, or you might have nothing, or you could even be in a negative position. And if you're in a negative position, it means you owe. And we really don't want to owe more than we own, right? So part of our conversation here is going to be, how do I move it from negative to zero to hopefully a positive number so that we can start saving as your grandmother so wisely taught you. So I would want to ask ladies, how do you go about budgeting? How do you go about setting a plan for yourselves?
Coffee, I throw that to you. You first.
Well, so far, I budget by having an idea just in my head of the expenses I would have per se for like the month or maybe every 2 weeks. And when I'm heading to the ATM, I actually would just draw a certain amount and balance how much out of the amount that I would need for each aspect of my day-to-day life. And that's how I would budget so far.
Okay, so you're not going to the ATM and saying, all right, let me go now, pull some money, go to another ATM. You know, I feel like I want to get something. pull. That's not your seed.
No.
For me, Tony, what I started to do, because I think when I was younger, sometimes we think we're budgeting because we understand how much we're making versus how much we're spending, but we don't really have that relationship. That's what I heard. You're having the relationship. So for me, what I had to start actively doing is, how much are my expenses? Put that down. What will I be left out, with? And out of that money, how much am I going to save? Like I had to literally chop it down and write it out just to make sure I could keep it in my mind. Is there a better way? Are we on the right track, Tony, or do Coffee and I need help?
Let me put it this way. I just want to challenge you guys. You're on the right path, but we're going to step it up a little bit now for 2021, right? So I want to challenge you to always write it down. Even if it's now we're at the start of a new year, this is a good time. Get pen, get paper, because there's something about writing. It commits it to your memory, right? And it shows you that you're really focused on this goal. So get your pen, get your paper, and write out all of your expenses and write out all the ways that you're making money and see what the result is. Now, I would also challenge you to say in this new year that you move to using a card to make your expense payments.
Interesting.
Why? And I'll talk more about the card options, right? But why? Ladies and gentlemen who may be watching, cash, believe it or not, is very difficult to track. Don't you find money, once it gets into your hand, it's like it just disappears. So, Coffee, you said you go to the ATM and you draw your whatever, your little $1,000, whatever. You don't even know what you spent it on by the end of the day. So when we use a card, what we have is the power to go back and go online, or if they have a mobile app associated, to now see all the different ways that you spent for that day. And you can go back to the budget that you wrote down and say, all right, I'm on track with my credit. I'm on track with my hairdresser. So it's a perfect way to track, because cash is very difficult to manage.
It's actually interesting that you say that, because a lot of people always say, cash is king, and we understand that. But it's interesting that it wasn't until you mentioned that I realize that's true. The most you'll get is a statement that you understand you drew this amount of money, but you're really not sure how you've spent it. For Coffee, let me ask this question of you, Coffee, because a lot of youngsters right now are very impressionable. And with the dawn of social media, it's the persons who spend the most, who show the most, who show off the most. That seems to be what drives the engagement, the likes. Although Conic say, we do it for the love and not the likes. How do you stay grounded and disciplined despite this massive platform? How do you stay thinking about legacy over likes, especially when it comes to budgeting?
Well, from the influence of people like my mom and my manager, I've been able to keep a steady head regarding money that I gain and money that I spend. So, I think even through MasterCard, I've been able to learn a lot. And through this collaboration, I've been able to gain a lot of information that I can now share to my peers so that they can even be more educated.
That's the beauty of sharing. And Tony, how important is it to have like a personal CFO? And by that, for persons who may not know, Chief Financial Officer. Most companies, big companies usually have a CFO, or some of us call them accountability partners. So budget can be very difficult, especially if you don't have the discipline and you haven't been taught from an early age. How important is it? And do you have a CFO in your life that, you can lean on and that person say, you don't need to buy that? You have enough. Don't spend anymore. How important is it having that person?
Terry, it is so significant because you find most of us, most of us don't have this kind of discipline at such a young age. So we need like a coach. I like to use that word too, right? Somebody who's going to say, all right, time, you have to remember your plans, you have to remember your goals and stay focused. So having an accountability partner is critical. And you have to it needs to be someone that you can trust because you're sharing very personal goals, financial goals that you set for yourself, and somebody that you can be vulnerable with, right? And for me, that person is my mother as well. And, just like you ladies, she really taught me a lot about some financial principles. And she's the one I go to and I said, these are the goals I've set for myself this year. And she will check in with me every now and again, or when she see me, moving not according to my plan, she reins me in. So having a coach, accountability partner, CFO, whatever we want to call it, is definitely a very important point, Terry.
Very, 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 very true. And again, going back to what Coffee said, it's so important that when you learn the information or when you get the information, to pass it on. So it's amazing to see how she was saying, hey, anything that I learn, I pass it on to my peers because I want them to do just as well as I am doing. So I think we have a good idea of budgeting and why it is important, and we need to write it down and track and keep our goals in mind. If this is not serving our goal, do away with it. Let's talk about emergency fund. Coffee, I don't know if you have one. I did not know what an emergency fund was, although technically my grandmother taught me always save your money for a rainy day. Tony, emergency fund, how does this drop in when we're talking about budgeting, and why is an emergency fund important?
I don't know about you, but we all survived 2020, and 2020 taught us that emergencies happen. And hope that we never have that kind of emergency again. But from either a global pandemic to needing to replace your car tire or buy a new phone, things just pop up, as we love to say in Jamaica, right? Things just pop up this month. And what you don't want to do is to derail your plan because these things have popped up. And now you have to dip into some other monies that you are putting aside to solve that issue. So an emergency fund is vital because it keeps you on track. I recommend saving at least 3 months worth of your living expenses and having that tucked away in a separate account. So you're going to go to the bank account tomorrow and and ask them to open a separate account for you. And in that account, you're going to start putting in until you've accumulated at least 3 months of your expenses, so that if the job leave you, or you leave the job, or Coffee boy, no tours this month, or no dates set, that you have something that you can fall back on, and it gives you peace of mind, and that is priceless.
So Coffee, I'm now coming over to you. Emergency fund is not necessarily what we hear about growing up. Did you know about an emergency fund even through high school, or is it something that became more apparent after you became Coffee, the superstar?
Well, I think I was able to learn about the emergency fund through something like the pandemic, just as Tony said. And I believe that's something that a lot of youth need more information on, just growing up, as opposed to when you hit a crisis or when you get old enough to be on your own.
Absolutely. And it's funny you should say that. So for example, for me, once the pandemic hit Coffee in March, and maybe this was the same for you, you would have had dates in your calendar to go here, tour there. And for me, it's the same as a host. And I saw my event dates just cancel. And at first, when I heard about an emergency fund being 3 months of my salary, I was just like, that's ridiculous. I cannot say that. But what I really realized is after the pandemic hit, I was actually living every month, paying my bills, living comfortably, because I had actually been able to save my emergency fund. So you're absolutely right. I think the point that you made about not just preparing for a crisis, but getting in the habit before that crisis might hit. Great nuggets, guys. So we know that we're trying to cover 3 points, right? So we're going to run from budgeting, and we're now going to go into payment methods. And Tony, you had started speaking about the importance of maybe using a card at your point of sale so that you're able to track your transactions and to manage that money and how you process it. So Tony, now we're talking about payment methods. Is one better than the other? What should we be considering?
Thanks, Terry. So it's not that one is better than the other, but each payment method serves a different purpose. So let's start with just came out of a crisis. In a crisis situation, you may need to have access to cash quickly. And when I say cash, I just really mean money, not literal cash. And what you find is a credit card is a vehicle that can do that for you, right? It gives you access to your borrowing money without going through the process of taking out a loan. That's what a credit card is. And there tends to be a little bit of reservation, in our society about credit cards. But my response is, in life, you need to do everything in moderation. And a credit card is no different. So I would say 2 things when you're using a credit card. Ensure that you don't spend more than you have the ability to pay. I know that sounds like, Tony, that is not mind-blowing, but it is significant, and a lot of people, don't have the discipline. So you have to have the discipline to spend what you're able to pay. And if you do have to borrow because you had some crisis or some emergency, and you have to make back the payments, always pay more than the minimum payment that you see on the credit card statement. Because they're going to tell you, okay, this month you can make a minimum payment of $100. Always try and pay a little bit more than the 100 so that you pay it down much faster.
Okay, thank you. Now, Coffee, I got my first credit card when do I even want to date myself? Let's just say I was, in like my late 20s when I got my first credit card. And at first I was like, I don't want to be like the persons in the movies that just swipe and swipe and swipe. And then of course they get these statements. How old were you when you got your first credit card? And when you were getting a credit card, what did it mean to you?
I was 18 years old when I got my first credit card, and it meant a lot to me. Thank you. Because I remember being like 14, 15 and wanting one, not really having a full understanding of what it was, and having my mom explain to me that when I'm 18, I can get the chance. So I don't remember if she said 16, I don't know if that's illegal, but I think she said 18, if not 16. And I was looking forward to the opportunity and the moment, and I was very excited.
Oh, very, very nice. And do you ever have any fear? We see technology, we see the amazing advancements that we've made in technology. We now have contactless, where you go with your card and you don't even have to swipe it. At any point in time, do you ever fear? Because that is also a big reason why some persons don't use it, and we're here to debunk the fear. Was there ever any fear that, one, you'd spend more than you could since it's so easy to? And number 2, was there ever any fear about compromise of card?
Well, I think at first, a lack of understanding definitely gave me a fear somehow. And learning about it helped me to balance this and to control the fear and to be able to use it wisely.
Nice. Now, Tony, you were talking about, a credit card, for example, and how it comes back down to discipline. A credit card can be extremely useful in a time when you need a certain amount of money right now. But again, it comes back down to discipline. What are the other things we need to be considering in terms of payment methods and the different kinds of cards that we should be using?
Yeah, so I would recommend, especially for young people, you probably want to start with a prepaid card. Now, a prepaid card is really cool because it's sort of like having credit on your phone. You just top it up with a certain amount of money, and when the money is done, the money is done. You don't owe anybody. You're not in any kind of, you're not putting yourself in any sort of debt. So I always recommend for young people, start with a prepaid card. It's very easy to sign up for these days. You just need one form of ID. So skip the long lines in the banking hall. So that's the advantage of a prepaid card. And then you have the debit card, which is attached to your bank account. And, you mentioned new technologies, Terry, that, I have to highlight that contactless is now very big in Jamaica. If you go around town, you'll see that no longer you need to swipe the card. And remember one time you used to rub off the strip, and then kind of no need to do that anymore. Now it's simply tap. And what is happening is there's technology in the machine that allows it to read your card information by just having that point of contact. So it is very safe. It is much more safe than the striping, right? The swiping. And so there should be no concern about, your information being leaked. And especially in the new normal of being concerned about, touching and trying to reduce the touch experience, contactless is a perfect way to pay safely.
And I think in true MasterCard style as well, it's the convenience, understanding what customers need, understanding what clients need in such a busy life. We really just want to pay and go. So Coffee, coming back to you, we're hearing about these different payment methods. We know that you have the ATM where you can withdraw safely. We know that you have your credit card that you got when you were 18, much younger than I was. That you have your debit card that if you use at your point of sale, you can track. Do you have a preference when it comes to payment methods? Or do you kind of carry a duffel with cash like the rap stars? I don't think so, but what say you?
I actually prefer a debit card. So I've actually had the experience of both. And I think I prefer a debit card because of points that Tony made. And for younger people like myself, it's much better to use the debit card.
Okay, so your preference is definitely the debit card. Tony, are there any other things that we should? So we're talking about the different methods. Now, since we're here and we might have a lot of young viewers who are now in the process of applying for that credit card or they're getting their debit card, in terms of security, are there anything they need to be aware of when using their cards?
Well, you definitely want to always be tracking, right? So this is more after you've used your card or not. You just want to make sure you have alerts on your phone so that if you see any transactions that look off, you can alert your bank right away. It is super important. Coffee is giving me a thumbs up, so I don't know if she has a little story to share. But what is good to know with the cards too, and another plug for cards versus cash is if you do have a fraudulent incident, the chances of you being paid back by the bank or the merchant is much higher because when the cash is gone, it's gone, right? So it's important that you are regularly looking at your statements. And I don't use statements, right? I have all my banks have mobile apps. And I can turn on alerts and it tells me you just use a debit card here. So if I see an alert and I see something that looks strange, you call customer service right away And within 2 weeks, X period of time, that money can go back to your bank account. So I would say be very vigilant over your account transactions.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to, we were speaking about it in budgeting, we're looking at it in payment methods. Again, it goes back to having that intimate relationship, understanding everything that is coming in and going out. And the more you do that, the more you develop it, is the better you're able to catch anything if it happens. So I think it's the perfect time to move into investment, because we mentioned credit card and understanding that it is owing. You know, you're taking out something, you are borrowing, and you have to pay it back and manage that debt. So let's talk about investment. Kofi, when you were younger, well, you're so young now, I don't even know how I'm talking about you were younger. But for many of us growing up in Jamaica, our parents used to tell us, save. Take out your cash, put it in a bank or put it under your mattress, but save. But not many parents taught us about investments, because it sounded like it was only for rich people. It was only for people who were like CEOs, and investment only became something that you hear people talking about now. Did you have any idea about investments in high school? And if so, how much?
I do think there's information provided on investment, I think depending on maybe the subject that you do, but I didn't really go in a financial kind of direction. So I started learning about investments when I became an artist and when I started meeting different kinds of the right people. So I think it's something that's very important for people to explore. It's good to know that no matter, like, even if you have a small amount of money, you can still invest it. So, yeah.
Love that point. Tony, I'm coming across to you because, again, I was one of those persons who, when persons started telling me about investment, I was like, I'm not a millionaire and I'm not a billionaire, so how am I going to invest? And I see movies with stocks and shares, and, you know, if the stock goes down, I lose my money. And I was in a state of fear whenever it came to investments. And funny enough, Kofi just made some very important points. One, being around the right people who will introduce you to the right kinds of investments, and understanding that you don't need a bag of money to invest. What would you like to add, Tony?
Investments are, because we're talking about financial empowerment, right? And earlier, Terry talked about generating real wealth that you can pass down to your children and their children, right? Money that long. And honestly, that type of wealth only comes through investing. You cannot earn that wealth by putting your money in a savings account or under your mattress. It needs to be in some sort of vehicle where it starts working for you, right? So I want people to appreciate that you must invest. But first question you must ask yourself before I even get to how much money you need is, let me examine what would happen if I did lose all this money that I'm investing. Like, would I have a nervous breakdown? Would everything crash around me? You know, so you need to, what I'm asking you to do is assess what we call your risk appetite. How much can you afford to lose? Because there is risk, like everything in life. Right? No, there's no free money. I think money does not grow on trees. We have to work, we have to make certain decisions. So when you make an investment decision, there's a possibility that you might lose the money, but there's also the possibility that it may grow tremendously. So you need to figure out what is your risk appetite, how much can you afford to lose, and how do you feel about losing money? Generally, the younger you are, you should be much more brave about making investments. And that's really because time is on your side. So even if you lose the money, you have time to recover, to build back again. Generally, as you age, right, you lose time. And so you have to be a little more conservative in those decisions. But as young people, I would really encourage you to take risk now, once you're educated and properly informed. So with that, the question that, you said, Terry and Kofi, that you think you need a lot of money. You don't. in Jamaica, right now on our stock exchange, the rules say you only need to buy $100 worth of shares. And if you look at the companies that are there are many companies trading for $1 or less per share. So imagine with 1,000 Jamaican dollars, you could start investing tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take a lot to get started.
Very good points. I think for me, when I started investing, and I don't know if this is the same for coffee, but for me, what I started to look at were diversifying my portfolio. So for me, it was, hey, if the banks were to shut down, we know it's not going to happen. Would I have money elsewhere? That's the first question I asked. And I realized, no, all of it was very savings heavy because that's what we're taught. I realized when I started to invest, now it opened up my portfolio. So I had different places. I looked at my goals. Like I said, I'm getting older and I need to be able to prepare for my future whenever that comes, whether it's pension, retirement, vacation. I had to put down my goals. And then I realized that, as you rightfully say, it didn't take a lot of money. So what I started to do, and I don't know if it will work for others, but instead of everything I earn heading into a savings account, I would start saying, okay, something for my emergency fund, and I will invest. And so what I did was I started to break it up so that the two portfolios would grow at the same time. I don't know if Coffee has any little things that she does in particular when it comes to investment, or if it is something that is advised, if people come to you and advise.
Similar, but not so similar to your experience, Terry. I had an awareness that I didn't want to have all this money right now, and then tomorrow I look and I don't have it because I made a not so wise decision, or I spent it somewhere where I couldn't get it back, or anything like that. So I started to reach out to some people and started to educate myself, and now I'm exploring different ways to invest the even little bit of money, because sometimes it's good to split it up and you can invest a small amount of money into something here and then maybe another small amount or maybe a larger amount into something over here. So it's good to.
And let me ask you, as a young individual, having heard about investments and seen the different ways that investments are shown, whether it's on TV and you hear people talking about it, and now that you have a better understanding about investment, what has changed most in terms of your thought? What myth did you have that you're now like, no, investment is actually okay? What one thing has changed the most for you?
Definitely the point I made before about not having to have a large amount of money. I think that was a huge realization for me, that you can have a small change, even not exactly a small change, a small amount of money, and still invest it and it have it turn into something big, have it work for you, and then a time like years later, then it can turn into something much more than what you invested in the first place.
Very well said. And I think Tony also said it about having that money work for you while you're sleeping, while you're going about your business. It is about working smarter, not necessarily hard, but working smarter and having your money work for you. So, Tony, are there any other benefits of investing besides just the portfolio, diversifying, making sure you have other options? Are there any other that you can add, or do we kind of cover all the bases?
I think we've covered why you should invest. I think I want to highlight how you should go about investing. So there are two ways. Either you do it yourself, so you open your account and you make your own decisions, or you can hire a financial advisor who is certified and licensed to give you advice, right? And I would say, if you can't go the route of getting a financial advisor and you want to just start investing on your own, I like to recommend investing in unit trusts. It takes away a lot of the work from you, because a unit trust is simply another financial manager who has pooled together some stocks, and that or she is investing on your behalf. So you are just investing in that pool. So that's one way, unit trust. Or two, I would say buy a company that you know, buy a company that you're using their product. So I'm giving these just for example, not investment advice, but in Jamaica, we all eat corned beef. Who makes the most corned beef in Jamaica? Grace Kennedy. Buy Grace Kennedy shares. Hey, we all use Blue Soap, right? Who makes Blue Soap? A company called Blue Power. Go buy their shares. We all shop at Hardware and Lumber. All of these. So what I'm saying is buy shares in companies that you know the product and you know that they've been around for a very long time, because that's a key test too, right? The longevity of the company and that they've withstood certain storms over the years. So that's two easy ways to start investing today.
I appreciate it, and what you really just anchored, because we're going to get into audience participation and their questions, but certainly what you have highlighted is the power of ownership. Not just spending the money and have the money go away, but actually becoming a shareholder. You're now owning a part of whatever that company makes, and that makes a huge difference when it comes to trying to build that generational wealth. Now, as I said earlier, and again, thank you, ladies, because I know, again, this topic is extremely wide, and I think you've been able to really drill them down. But we also have other persons who are watching who have other questions as well, and we appreciate the audience participation. So we're going to go ahead and read a few, and I'm going to have Coffee read out the very first question.
The first question says, hello, I'm 18 and I have never had a credit card. At what age should I have my first one? Should I have another card first?
Good question. Tony, I don't think Coffee and I are going to take this question, so we're going to hand it over to you as the financial experts.
Sure. So in Jamaica, you can apply for your credit card at the age of 18, right? That's a legal age. So yes, you may. However, my advice is to start with a prepaid card, because a prepaid card will help you to build the discipline and the behaviors that you're going to need to manage a credit card successfully. Remember, with the prepaid card, you just top up money. It's like your phone credit. You top it up, you use what you have on the card, and when it's done, it's done. You won't owe anything to anyone. So I think that's a safe way to build a disciplined practice of spending and staying within your budget so that you don't get into any unnecessary financial trouble.
That sounds really good. And then you graduate with your discipline, you can take it to the next level. Thank you so very much.
Definitely.
I think we'll take one more question.
Are there any cards or options for university alumni to start in finances?
So for graduates of university, you've probably started working. I would recommend that, yes, you apply for a credit card, but look for one that has a really good rewards program so that your money can really work for you. For example, there are card programs that give you points that you can use towards booking your next trip, your next vacation, right? So the principle is use your credit card to make all your everyday expenses, right? Paying for your gas, paying your light bill, things you have to spend on anyway. Use your credit card, and what that does is you start accumulating points. And like at the end of the year, you can look at that points balance and redeem the points for possibly your next trip to Miami. And that's the best way, I think, for a new graduate to start using their credit card.
Fantastic. I was going to say a vacation to Bali. I was going to use my rewards and go extremely far. But that's a very good point that you made, and we could tie it into investing as well in terms of making your money work for you. If you're going to spend the money anyway, why not have it give you back benefits, give you back rewards that you can enjoy? I think it's the fruit of your labor. So very good answers. So time flies when you're having fun. And of course, we've come to the end of the Financial Camp webinar presented by MasterCard. But certainly, we could not leave without saying some final words. So, Coffee, new year, new season, new do-over for quite a lot of persons. What are your final words to them?
I would first like to thank you, Terry, and thank Tony for your time here. And I would like to thank MasterCard for allowing me to partner with them. It has taught me a lot, and this financial camp has also taught me a lot. And I hope that the viewers as well, especially my peers, young people, have been able to learn a lot from watching this and will use this information in the future.
Yeah, that they will use it wisely. Thank you so very much. And I know that you're extremely busy and you're still able to fit us in. And let me just stick in this part on behalf of everyone watching. We're so proud of you. For someone so young, so grounded, so disciplined, you have your head on your body and you do so much, not just for yourself, but generations and many of other persons looking up to you as a role model. So we just say that, may your territory increase, may you see abundance and just continue to do us proud. Really happy for you. And thank you. Now, Tony, our financial expert, new normal, a lot of persons, young and old and in between alike, have a lot of new things that they need to be thinking about. What final words do you have for them?
I want to first congratulate you, our viewers, for being here, for making the decision to say, you know what, I want more, that there is so much to gain and learn, and I don't have the information, and being courageous enough to go and find it. So thank you for being here. And, we at MasterCard, we truly believe that we can't thrive as a company unless the economy and the citizens are also prospering. So I encourage you to keep pushing, keep learning, and move forward towards true financial freedom, because that's what's truly priceless.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so very much. That's when we say it's a wrap. So again, thank you for taking the time. We know that you could be anywhere doing anything, watching anything, but instead you decided to invest some time into learning even more. And all we want to remind you is just have that goal, write down that goal, plan, strategize, and execute. We know it can be difficult, but it takes time. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Go and look for the information, read, research, and make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right kinds of people who can give you the right kinds of credible information. And again, if you missed any part of this financial camp webinar, don't worry, we have you covered. Just make sure that you go and visit priceless.com to get access to the replays. So again, on behalf of MasterCard, we wish you all the best along your financial journey, and just know that we'll always be here for you. I'm Dr. Terry Carell Reid, and it was a pleasure serving you as host. Take care, be safe.